you live anywhere outside of Australia, buying a pre-built PC might not be a bad move. However, for us unlucky Aussies, the PC market is still 50 years behind the rest of the world. I'm Technophy, and today we're going to be reviewing a range of retail pre-builts and determining whether they're a waste of money or not. I myself have fallen victim to the daylight robbery ran by Australian PC retailers. To put it into perspective, a pre-built PC is just a regular computer built by professionals that typically sits on market shelves, awaiting a brainless consumer to just swing by and buy it. In today's video, we're going to look at some Australian retailers as well as what gaming PCs they have to offer and see how much they're actually overpricing them, and we'll fix them up if we have to. First up, we have Harvey Norman. This is probably the most reasonable we're going to get within everyday retail standards. It's not the best, but there are worse ones out there, so let's take a look at this PC. Now, starting it off with the build at Harvey Norman here, we have a i5-10400F, which that's really refreshing to see within this budget. For a computer that's only $1,600, 10th gen, anything really is really good. The fact that it's an i5 10th gen is even better. So to pair with that, we have an MSI MPG Z490, or at least that's what I'm going to assume is in there because they haven't actually specified, but since it's an MSI build and it is a 10th gen i5, I'm just going to assume that they do have a Z490 in there. With the cooler, they didn't specify that either, so we just put in a Cryprog M9i. Hopefully that's, it looks like what's in the case, but it might not be, but we're just going to run with that anyway. For the memory, weirdly enough, they're running one 16GB kit of Team T-Force Vulcan Z. It's a bit weird that they're running at a 116 gig because, you'd think you'd be running dual channel memory in 2020, but apparently Harvey Norman's 5 years in the past. It could be the fact that it isn't, Harvey Norman's custom built. It's, it is a pre-built from a manufacturer that they're just selling on. But it is a bit weird to see a 16GB kit in one slot. Moving to the storage, there is 512GB of M.2 SSD. I'm not sure if that is the case in this PC. It doesn't specify that either, so we've just had to kind of hope for the best. Again, it is 2020, so M.2 storage isn't expensive. Well, it is, but it's not as expensive as it was, last year or in 2018 when, they started becoming quite a, prominent issue. Now, we also have 1TB of Western Digital Blue storage. This is quite good. I think my last build had a 1TB Western Digital, and I think that was the boot drive, but it's kind of irrelevant because, 1TB is nice. You can install quite a lot of games with 1TB. I have 2TB and I'm only using one, and that's including a bunch of video editing stuff, graphic design stuff, all my games, 1TB is sufficient. Running with the video card, we have an MSI GTX 1650 Super. This is probably the most impressive part of the build. The fact that they fit this and a 10th generation i5 in this budget is honestly quite shocking. You could probably mess around with the build and somehow find a way to fit in a 2060 or like a 1660 Super, but again, this is still a really good build. The case here we have is the MSI Magforce 10 100R, and it's a mid-ATX build with a Silverstone 650 watt bronze power supply. Now, a little bit disappointing to see a bronze power supply, but again, it doesn't really matter because it's such a it's a lower budget build, so the lower power supplies aren't really that much of a problem. It's when you start getting into the 2000s or the 1800s, that's when the silver or gold power supplies really need to start coming out. Now, Harvey Norman did price this PC at $1,594, so basically $1,600, but we were able to build a PC part picker with these parts for $1,374. So you're actually saving yourself about $250, $225-ish when you build it yourself, which for a lot of people, it's probably better off building it yourself. I personally wouldn't pay the extra $225 to get it built, or to purchase it as a pre-built, but then again, that convenience and accessibility comes with it. Plus, it does come with 36 months warranty, which 3-year warranty is always good. It brings customers back, it keeps them happy, and you know that you're safe with that warranty. Second up we have Centacom. Centacom should theoretically be the best option of the three, as it does specialize in PC parts and electronics, but we won't know until we do have a look. So let's have a look at a more mid-tier build, sitting at $2,500, the Thunder Ryzen 2080 Super Gaming System. This build features a Ryzen 7 3700X, which is a nice, fast CPU. While the release of 5th gen Ryzen CPUs are out, 3rd generation, especially the 3700X, is still more than enough, and it's definitely going to do the job. Now, for the cooler, we are looking at an AMD stock cooler. This is kind of disappointing because you could rearrange the parts and get like a Hyper 212 or Hyper 212 Evo RGB, or just something like a, an AIO. But again, it's not terrible, so it does do the job. For the motherboard, we are running a B450M mortar. I think it's a micro ATX board. But the problem I have with this is that you could just upgrade to a B550 board, and it's so much better. I think for the same price you can pick up a MSI B550, so it does stay within that MSI theme build, because this is what this has gone for. It's gone for an MSI build, and they're throwing in a B450 when B550 is just so much better. Now for the RAM, we do have 32GB of DDR4 3200MHz RAM from Team T-Force, and it is the Vulcan Z series, so this comes in two 16GB strips, which is just really nice to have in dual channel memory. 32GB as well. It's very good for VR, video editing, all of the in-between, so this is another really good build, for its budget. So with the storage, we do have a Kingston A2000, which is a 1TB M.2 SSD. Now SSDs are expensive, but they're getting cheaper as time goes on. And with this year, SSDs have come to a more reasonable point in price. So to have a 1TB SSD, it's actually really nice to have. And this build really does hit that. So it's really nice, but the only problem is there is no external storage. There's no hard drive or anything else. It's just the 1TB SSD. This is a bit sad because you are going to run out of storage pretty quickly, but it's easy to upgrade. You can throw in a $70 2TB hard drive in like 5 minutes if you know what you're doing. So again, it's not really a problem. Now for the video card, we are using the MSI 2080 Super Ventus XS OC. Now this could be beneficial if this was pre-30 series. Now 30 series and RX series has just made this kind of obsolete. You can pick up an MSI RTX 37 Ventus for about $1,100, which is cheaper than what it would be to put an RTX 2080 Super in this thing. So I think it would make more sense to put a 30 series card in here, but then again, this was probably made back when 20 series was relevant. So at the end of the day, it's not really a big deal. Now for the case, we have the nice Entech NX400. This is a nice ATX mid-tower case. It does feature a tempered glass side panel, which is nice to see, because I know a lot of pre-builds now have plastic covers with just little air vents in them, and they're pretty tacky. And considering it's quite a cheap case, it's quite good. For the power supply, we are looking at another 650 watt bronze power supply. Again, I don't like bronze power supplies, and in this sort of build, I would definitely not go for a 650 watt or a bronze. I'd probably put in a 750 watt gold just to be on the safe side, because you are drawing a lot of power with that GPU and CPU. But at the end of the day, these small adjustments have been made to fit in those beefy things, like a 2080 Super. So you kind of just have to work with it. So this PC was actually listed at $2,499 on Centacom, and in PC Part Picker only comes to $2,392. So you're actually only about $100 short from the pre-built, which is really nice to have. It's definitely always a good thing to have a pre-built under $150. So if you're getting that value, you might as well pay for it. 150 is usually the mark where I would say no, I'm not buying a pre-built. So if you can get the same specs and it's less than 150, then just go for the pre-built. And this does a perfect job of that. So I'm going to give this build a 10 out of 10 because, there's, apart from the few things that I did point out which can be fixed, you can do that yourself anyway if you're building it. But this is a really good build for its price. And yeah, we'll move on to the final build of the episode. last but not least, we have the Kingpin retail store in Australia, most known for
Bruh.
the economy and even greater denying my job application. JB Hi-Fi is the man for the job. So we saved the best one for last, sitting closer to the $6,000 budget. We have JB Hi-Fi's MSI Trident X. Now, something I've noticed across all these builds, they're all MSI, which is really weird. Anyway, yeah, if you have a look at the specs on this monster of a machine, never mind, the only monster here is JB for selling this junk for $6,000. $6,000. What is going on, JB? So if you look at the specs, we have an i9 10900K. This is Intel's flagship card. This is their newest, their fastest, their best CPU on the line. So to have this in the system is really nice. So obviously this is paired with a Z490, which I don't believe they specify on this one either, but it just makes common sense, you know, have a Z490 in a 10th gen build, and keep it MSI themed as well, since it is an MSI build. So we also threw in a Hyper 212 RGB because it's the closest thing to it that I think, well, it's the closest thing that looked like it on that build. And you know, it's a good cooler, it does have good airflow. Now for storage we have a Samsung 970 EVO 1TB M.2 and a Seagate Barracuda 4TB. Now 4TB is a lot of storage. Many will argue you need that, many will argue you don't. Personally, it depends what you're doing. I think if you're doing something in the film industry or graphic design or AI or, you know, web development, something around that area, you're going to need a lot of storage because it is quite a storage capacitating job. But if you're just playing games, 4TB, don't need it. Stupid. With the memory, I forgot to go over that. We have Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro. That also wasn't specified. They just said 32 gigabytes of memory, so that doesn't really help. But we've just put in 32 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 MHz RGB RAM, running in two 16 slots. Now, this hopefully wouldn't be another one of those builds that does put it in one slot. So I'm just hoping that it's in two, because I've put it as two, but it doesn't really make a difference either way because you're still getting the same specs there. It's just not going to optimize dual channel memory. Now for the video card, we have an MSI RTX 2080 Super 8GB Ventus OC. Now this is stupid because, again, same thing with the last build, the 30 series is out, it's cheaper than the 2080 Super. Why would you do it? It's better, it's cheaper. Why? Why are we still why are we still putting 2080s in builds? It's 2020, like end of 2020. We have 30 cards. Now for the case, we have the custom MSI ATX case. I couldn't find what it's called because it is a custom MSI case, but from what it looks like, it's a micro ATX case, so it's gonna be fairly portable, but it looks like it's starved of airflow, and that's another thing with this case. Even though it has fans, it looks like it's all really compact and heated together. So I'd probably put an AIO in this build if I, you know, wanted to change anything. But, you know, it is what it is. And for the power supply, I've put in a Seasonic Plus Gold 1000 watt 80 plus power supply. The reason for this is because it is, again, drawing so much electricity with that i9 running, that Z490. You've got 4 terabytes of storage, a 2080 Super. These are, and lots of RGB in it too, so these are lots of things that draw power, so 1000 watts is probably sustainable, and they don't tell you that on the spec sheet, so you kind of had to go off common sense. But regardless, this one's just ridiculous. So JB Hi-Fi is charging for their, what build is this? This is the Trident X build. JB's charging $5,798 normally, but for this week, during Black Friday sales, they're charging around $4,500 last time I checked. But that's still ridiculous, because if you were to build it on your own, it would only cost you $3,689. Where does that $2,000 go? Nobody knows. We do not have a clue. That $2,000, I don't know if that's gone to the builders, I don't know if that's gone to MSI, is that going to JB? Who knows where that money's going, but it is not worth it. Do not buy this computer. I don't even think I'd have to say it at this point. It's just stupid. Don't buy it. Now, I also want to remind everyone watching this video that if you are interested in building your own PC along these lines of, or one of these builds, but just build it yourself, I've put the link to the description for all the parts below. So if you want to look at the Harvey Norman build, Centicon build, or even this build in PC Part Picker. The link is in the description, so you can go check those out for free. So to summarize the video, pre-built computers do come at an expense. Some are nice, some are ugly. It's really hard to tell. You just have to do your research, open up PC Part Picker, and just put the parts in yourself. If you've got a general idea of what parts go with what, you can kind of get an overview of what most people would be putting in pre-builds. So if you do that, just have a look and see what goes together, how much more you're paying to have it built for you, and what are the luxuries, you know, like where it comes to warranty, or, you know, tech support, like all that stuff, what the extra packages are, and if it's worth it. Because I know with the JB one, for sure, that definitely wasn't worth it. The Harvey Norman one, I probably personally wouldn't have gone for that. However, the Centicom I would. So it's just, again, it's down to individual basis of each pre-built. But as a general conception, you know, my general standpoint would be just stay away from pre-built computers if you live in Australia. But if you do live outside of Australia, somewhere like the US or the UK, and you'd like me to make a similar video, let me know in the comments and show your support by liking and subscribing. If you do like my content and would like to visit my gaming and editing channel, the link's in the description below. Thank you for all watching and have a great day.